What happens when a world-famous duchess carrying years of controversy sits across from America's most trusted morning anchor? At first glance, it feels like television as usual. Polished lights, smooth smiles, and carefully rehearsed lines. But this isn't just another interview. This is the kind of live confrontation that makes viewers lean forward in their seats, whispering to themselves, "Did she really just say that?" From the moment the cameras flicker on, tension hums beneath the bright CBS studio glow. The questions seem polite, the answers graceful, but underneath both women know a storm is brewing. And before the hour is over, millions watching will see masks fall, voices sharpen, and a royal guest pushed further than she ever expected. The CBS studio buzzed with its usual morning rhythm. Crew members gliding silently across the floor, cameras gliding into position, and the familiar orange and blue backdrop glowing behind the desk. Gayle King, poised in her signature elegance, sat with a pen balanced between her fingers, her notes arranged neatly in front of her. Across from her, Meghan Markle sat in a tailored ivory suit, hair cascading in loose waves, posture upright and deliberate. To the casual viewer, it looked like a routine segment. A respected journalist and a polished guest here to discuss a new project. Smiles were exchanged, pleasantries offered. Gayle's voice rang calm, smooth, reassuring. Meghan's tone was practiced, controlled, almost regal. But even as the broadcast began, a quiet electricity lingered in the air. Something told the crew, the audience, and perhaps even Meghan herself. This would not stay polite for long. "Meghan, thank you for being here," Gayle began warmly, her voice steady, her smile as bright as the studio lights. "You've been working on a new global initiative. Tell us about it." Meghan tilted her chin slightly, her smile calculated, rehearsed. "It's about raising awareness for causes that are too often ignored, using my platform to amplify voices that deserve to be heard." Her words were polished, her delivery flawless. The audience nodded along, some clapping politely. For a moment, everything felt predictable, uplifting even. But Gayle, a veteran journalist, wasn't satisfied with the surface. She leaned forward ever so slightly, a signal that the next question would cut deeper. The calm energy in the studio shifted like the air before a storm, though most viewers couldn't quite put their finger on why. Gayle's eyes sharpened, though her smile never faltered. "You've spoken often about your personal truth," she said smoothly. "But there are people who've questioned some of your accounts. For instance, when you told Oprah about a private wedding ceremony before the official one, the Archbishop himself contradicted that. How do you reconcile the difference?" The studio temperature seemed to change. Meghan's smile stiffened. Just a flicker, but enough for millions watching to notice. She brushed an invisible crease from her sleeve before answering. "It's interesting how people cling to technicalities. What Harry and I shared was sacred to us. That's what mattered. Others can nitpick if they want." The audience shifted uncomfortably. The pleasant morning show glow dimmed into something sharper, tenser. Gayle gave a measured nod, her poise intact. But she had just tested Meghan's first crack. "I understand," Gayle replied, her tone still composed. "But some would argue truth should be universal, not just personal, especially when it shapes public perception." Meghan's lips curved into a faint, dismissive smile. "With all due respect, Gayle, you weren't there. People who comment from the outside will never understand. They can speculate all they want, but my truth remains mine." The arrogance in her tone was subtle but unmistakable. The audience caught it. A ripple of unease spread through the room. Gayle remained calm, but her pen pressed slightly harder against her notes. This wasn't the sweet, carefully packaged guest producers had expected. This was Meghan with her guard up, determined not to yield, even if it meant pushing back against one of the most respected interviewers in America. Gayle shifted again, her voice even. "Let me ask about something else. You've said you received no media training when entering royal life, yet palace insiders claim otherwise. Are they lying?" Meghan's smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed. Her voice edged. "Palace insiders. Anonymous voices protecting an outdated institution. Forgive me if I don't validate their narratives. I lived it. I know the truth." Her words cut like glass, dismissive, dripping with disdain. Gasps whispered through the studio. For viewers at home, it was a startling glimpse behind Meghan's polished exterior. Gayle nodded slowly, refusing to react, but the tension was undeniable now. Every question carried weight, every answer carried fire, and with each exchange, the polite morning show mask was slipping further from Meghan's face. The camera zoomed in as Gayle adjusted her glasses, her voice calm but firmer now. You've often spoken about isolation during your pregnancy, even being denied mental health assistance. But some former staff say resources were available. How do you respond? Meghan's eyes gleamed with controlled irritation. It's very easy for people to rewrite history when they've never lived my life. Those staff protect the monarchy. I was the one who suffered. Their claims mean nothing to me. Her tone dripped superiority laced with poison. The audience shifted again. The morning show comfort was gone. This was no longer a polite Q&A. It was a duel. Gayle's brow furrowed, barely noticeable, but her patience was clearly being tested. For a moment, the silence between them was louder than any question. Still composed, Gayle continued, her voice steady. Multiple accounts exist. People will want consistency. That's natural. Meghan gave a sharp, almost theatrical laugh. Consistency. The only consistent thing has been the smear campaign against me. Lies, distortions, half-truths. I don't owe anyone explanations, especially not to nameless critics whispering to tabloids. The audience stirred again. Meghan wasn't just deflecting questions, she was attacking them. Her answers felt less like explanations and more like commands. Gayle inhaled deeply, her calm a practiced shield, but inside she felt the storm growing stronger. This wasn't about a project anymore. It was about accountability, and Meghan was determined to swat it away at every turn. All right, Gayle said softly. Let's pivot. You've spoken about wanting privacy after leaving the royal family. Yet, you've written books, filmed documentaries, and given high-profile interviews. How do you reconcile that? Meghan leaned forward slightly, her smile gone, her voice cool and sharp. Privacy doesn't mean silence. Privacy means control. Just because I share what I choose doesn't mean I owe every detail of my life. Frankly, Gayle, I find the question insulting. The air thickened. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Gayle's jaw tightened, though her voice remained measured. I'm not trying to insult you, Meghan. I'm trying to understand the balance. Meghan's reply was swift, cutting like a blade. Then perhaps you should try harder, Gayle. The insult landed like a slap. Gasps echoed across the studio. Gayle's smile thinned, her composure cracking just slightly. For the first time, her eyes hardened, steel shining beneath the calm exterior. She had interviewed presidents, survivors, global leaders. But rarely had she been dismissed so bluntly, so arrogantly, live on her own set. Meghan sat back, arms folded, chin tilted upward, a picture of defiance. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the storm that was now impossible to ignore. Gayle inhaled slowly, pressing her notes flat against the table as if anchoring herself. The morning's polite tone was gone. What remained was an interview teetering on the edge of explosion, and every viewer at home could feel it. Gayle folded her hands, a small fortress of patience. You've often said you value service over titles, she said carefully. What does service look like outside the monarchy? Meghan laughed softly, not kindly. It looks like work that doesn't need a royal stamp to matter. Her gaze sharpened. It looks like refusing to be defined by other people's expectations. Gayle absorbed it, then pressed with precision. Critics say the narrative often returns to your story. Do you worry that eclipses the cause? A beat. Meghan's eyes cooled. People obsess over personalities because it's easier than improving systems. The audience felt the subtext like heat rising from asphalt. Gayle had watched leaders absorb hard questions, redirect with grace, or disarm with candor. Meghan instead met pressure with heat. It dazzled and it scorched. The air thickened, and with it the knowledge that both women were approaching the edge of what they would allow on live television. A studio assistant slid a fresh bottle of water toward the edge of the desk, as if diplomacy came with a cap and seal. The audience laughed nervously, then fell silent again. Gayle tried a softer angle. Let's come back to your initiative, she offered. What problem does it solve that others haven't? Meghan exhaled, but rather than stepping onto the bridge, she set it on fire. It solves the problem of people centering institutions over real lives, she said. It refuses to ask permission from systems designed to silence. The rhetoric landed like thunder. Gayle nodded once, acknowledging the passion but not surrendering ground. Specifics help people act, she said. One program, one partner, one measurable goal. Meghan's smile returned, thinner now. I'm not here to recite bullet points, she replied. Impact doesn't need applause to exist. A murmur rolled through the seats. The control room whispered, Do we break? The producer shook his head. Not yet. The friction was no longer incidental. It was the feature. Gayle didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Viewers want clarity, she said, tapping her notes once, a quiet metronome for restraint. When powerful claims are made, questions follow. That's not hostility. It's journalism. Meghan's eyes flashed. And I respect journalism when it's honest, she replied, crisp as a blade. But I won't validate narratives designed to corner me. The control room held its breath. On the floor, a camera operator shifted his stance, bracing for a sudden pivot. Audience members leaned forward, elbows on knees, sensing the shape of a moment forming. Gayle's posture straightened by a single degree. No one's cornering you, she said evenly. I'm inviting you to explain. Meghan's chin tipped up half an inch. I've explained for years, she said, voice cool. And every answer is treated like evidence for the next interrogation. The words hung heavy as stage lights. For the first time all morning, the interview was no longer about facts. It was about control, and both women knew it. Let's be frank, Gayle said at last. If you ask the public to trust you, consistency matters. She didn't cite names. She didn't need to. The headline-sized moments already floated above them like unspoken captions. Meghan's reply came slow, deliberate. Consistency matters, she echoed. But so does context. So does humanity. So does the right to grow. She leaned in, voice satin over steel. And so does the right not to be cross-examined for sport. The audience split in silence, some nodding, others stiffening. Gayle kept her gaze steady. This isn't sport, she said. It's accountability. The same one I expect of presidents and princes. A sharp intake of breath somewhere in the third row. Meghan's fingers laced together in her lap. Then hold them to it, she said. All of them. Not just me. The sentence sounded like principle. It also sounded like deflection. And the difference, to millions watching, was the story. A red tally light blinked on camera too. The shot tightened. Meghan's smile faltered for a fraction, enough to suggest effort. Gayle noticed. One concrete example, she requested gently. Tell a viewer how to help today because of your work. The invitation was generous. The refusal was instant. I won't be reduced to a list, Meghan said. People can find the details on our site. A few groans slipped out before etiquette could stop them. Gayle's pen stilled. Appearing here, she said, means offering the substance only you can give. That's part of trust. The sentence clicked like a door latch. Meghan straightened, eyes bright, daring. And trust, she said, isn't earned by surrender. The studio's hum dropped to a low electric tremor. Both women were right. Both women were immovable. And television, in moments like this, loves an immovable object most. Meghan, Gayle said, voice level. I'm not your critic. I'm your interviewer. She let the distinction breathe. And my viewers expect me to test the claims that shape public life. Meghan's reply was colder than the studio air. What they expect, she said, has been taught to them by an industry that feeds on spectacle. She glanced at the cameras, then back. If this is about truth, ask better questions. The line hit like a cymbal crash. The audience gasped. A producer dropped a headset note that nobody read. Gayle didn't flinch. Better answers help too, she said, not louder, lower. A controlled burn for a heartbeat. The set felt like a courtroom without a judge. Two counsels arguing over who got to define reality. Somewhere off camera, a floor manager silently counted down to an optional break. No one took it. Gayle set her notes aside. A small ceremony of seriousness. I'm going to say something plainly, she began. The tone you've adopted today risks burying your message. People can't hear purpose through contempt. The words were firm, not cruel. They landed anyway. Meghan's lashes fluttered once, twice. Contempt, she repeated, voice cool. I call it boundaries. Boundaries, Gayle agreed. Protect. Contempt pushes away the very people you say you want to reach. A rustle in the audience. Empathy for both. Allegiance to neither. Meghan's jaw tightened. Women with boundaries are called difficult, she said. Men are called leaders. The line would trend later. In the moment, it worked like a flare, bright, hot, briefly blinding while the terrain beneath still needed crossing. Specifics, accountability, proof. Gayle breathed in, then out. Let's try again, she said softly. What will success look like in 12 months? Silence, poised like a guillotine. When the answer came, it came barbed. Success looks like fewer demands that I justify my choices to people who don't see me as human, Meghan said. A chorus moved through the seats. Not quite approval, not quite shock. Gayle's patience, a deep well, finally showed bedrock. You asked for this platform, she said, voice even, eyes bright. Respect for the audience is part of taking it. The sentence cut clean. Meghan's posture didn't move, but the temperature around her seemed to spike. Respect, she said softly, is a two-way door. For the first time, Gayle allowed the steel to show. And doors open, she replied, when you knock with an answer. The producers exchanged looks that meant we're in it now. No commercial would save them from the climax. Their conversation was writing itself in real time. Gayle's voice lost its velvet, kept its dignity. Your work matters, she said. So do the questions. Dismissing them isn't strength, it's evasion. The words snapped like chalk. Meghan's restraint frayed. You don't get to define my strength, she said. You don't get to decide what I owe. Gayle tilted her head, a teacher considering suspension. I decide nothing, she said. I asked, and you show who you are by how you answer. The audience froze somewhere. A cough tried to exist and failed. Meghan's lips parted, then pressed flat. Her next words carried the heat of a door about to slam. Then here's who I am, she said. Someone who refuses to be reduced by people who make a living dissecting women. Gayle took the hit. Refuse the narrative. I make a living listening, she said. And I just did. It was subtle, then it wasn't. The set's balance, 2 chairs, 2 voices, 1 stage, shifted to a steep angle. Meghan's arms folded. Gayle's hand stayed open. We can end on a different note, Gayle offered. One story, one person your initiative changed this month. The olive branch gleamed. Meghan glanced at it, let it fall. I won't parade people's pain for validation, she said. A few claps, a few sighs. Gayle nodded once, as if closing a file. Then we're done, she said, tone gentle. Final. The words didn't mean the segment, they meant the spiral. But live television loves a literal. Meghan mistook the period for an insult. She stood. Chairs scrape louder on TV than you remember. The sound sliced through the quiet like a zipper pulled too fast. Meghan rose to her full height, regal and rigid. The audience startled. The Steadicam swung to catch the moment the way lightning catches a tree. Gayle didn't stand. She looked up, calm as a lighthouse. We're still live, she said softly. You're welcome to sit. Meghan's eyes glistened. Anger, hurt, both were plausible. I'm not here to be humiliated, she said. I came to talk about real work. Gayle nodded. Then talk, she said. The seat still warm. For a breath, the future balanced on a heel turned toward the exit. The control room prepared 3 graphics, 2 cuts, 1 apology. None were used. Meghan didn't sit. This isn't a conversation, she said, voice tight. It's a performance. Gayle's reply was air over granite. Only if you perform avoidance. The audience drew in as if oxygen would choose a side. Meghan reached for her purse, a gesture with centuries of symbolism it never asked for. Gayle at last stood. Not a challenge, a courtesy. You deserve to be heard, she said. So do the people who believed you when you asked them to. The sentence found its mark. Meghan's eyes flicked, then hardened. The choice was made. She turned toward the soft-lit corridor where guests enter smiling, and leave quoted. The camera followed at a respectful distance, capturing the shape of departure without the indignity of chase. The door slid shut. The studio didn't move for a full second. Then time restarted in a rush, whispers, headset crackle, the rustle of a producer sprinting, and then pretending he hadn't. Gayle faced the lens. Her voice returned to low tide. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, live television reveals things we don't plan for. We invited a conversation about work and impact. We also met fear, pride, and the cost of fame. She didn't gloat. She didn't scold. She studied. Truth isn't comfortable, she added. But we owe it to each other. In homes across the country, toasters popped, group chats lit, and 1,000 breakfast tables argued, kindly or not. The segment had ended. The discussion had not. During the break, the studio exhaled. A makeup artist stared at her untouched brush. A camera op muttered, "That's history," to nobody in particular. The control room threaded a highlight reel they didn't air. Outside the building, a cluster of paparazzi recalibrated angles they hadn't expected to need before noon. Online, clips multiplied, then argued with their own captions. Some called Meghan brave. Some called her brittle. Some called Gayle cruel. Others called her necessary. Think pieces drafted themselves across every time zone. But inside the studio, where the lights still warmed the desk and the silence finally felt merciful, Gayle sat down again. She sipped water. She straightened paper that no longer mattered. And she prepared to move the show forward. the way professionals do when the ground has just shifted under their feet. The broadcast returned. The music cue was the same as always. Nothing else was. Gayle's face held composure, not triumph. "We'll continue our program," she said. "And we'll also continue a principle: ask hard questions with respect. Answer them with substance." She glanced toward the empty chair, without exploiting it. "To our audience, you're smart. You decide what you saw." Then she did what morning anchors do best. She widened the frame. If today stirred something in you, about power, about privacy, about service, turn it into action close to home. Volunteer, read deeply, speak carefully, listen fully. The camera eased out, revealing the set that had hosted a tremor and remained standing. "And now," Gayle concluded, voice calm, "more stories that matter." The segment closed. The echo didn't. Across living rooms and timelines, the conversation kept walking room to room, asking for less heat, more light, and daring anyone who'd watched to become larger than the moment they'd just seen.